my presentation today is built on the Japanese government proposal for free flow with trust. And I basically am saying that in order to achieve free flow with trust, we need to rethink digital trade agreements. So here, as you can see, the future of digital trade is in Asia. Asian countries are setting the rules, and that is a good thing. But the current approach is built on a notion that free flow and trust would be equally important. So this began with the global framework for e-commerce in 1997, and that in turn led to bilateral principles between the US and the EU, US and Japan, and that over time led to the OECD principles, and that over time led to binding language. But somehow, trust became less important and it became a possible spillover instead of an equally important objective. So again, I'm saying that trust became subordinate to free flow of data. And that puts us in a difficult situation. Okay, so are these agreements expanding trust? I would argue probably not. Look at the evidence. It's all qualitative evidence, but there's more cyber theft, malware, DDoS attacks, disinformation, and violations of privacy. We have not learned how to create a stable and secure internet. Moreover, if you look at global public opinion polls, you see greater trust and a declining sense of security online. In addition, the future of the digital economy is in the developing world, yet many of these countries lack digital prowess, as well as data governance rules. And we, Japan, the United States, the EU, Australia, we are not doing enough to help these countries create norms and good rules. So why might these agreements be failing to build trust? So first of all, there are lots of different types of data and they're hard to govern. Moreover, our research shows nobody knows what good data governance looks like. And by that, I mean how they govern not just personal data, but proprietary and public data. The platforms basically own us. They hold the bulk of data. We need these firms. They are essential to global economy and to national security. But you and I, as citizens and as users, have little control over how these firms monetize and control our data. And so that's not building trust, I would argue. Then let's look at the agreements. As we saw recently in Australia, the platforms are using their political clout to influence global and national regulation, and increasingly to bully nations, including the United States. Facebook bullied the Trump administration to ban TikTok. We don't know what works in trade agreements. There's a lack of reliable data. Partly that's because they're new or relatively new, but we need some sort of understanding of what's working and what's not. These agreements depend on exceptions, and particularly the general exceptions and the national security exceptions. And we see more and more digital trade barriers, but the definition in trade agreements focuses on the concerns of the firms, but not necessarily on the concerns of people, such as censorship or internet shutdowns, which we see increasingly in democracies like India. Moreover, if you look at what the language says about regulating privacy and spam, they're doing little to promote interoperability because they say, enforce your own laws. Well, many of these countries don't have good laws on the book. Okay. So I'm saying that basically, if we really want to build trust, we have to do more. It's not supposed to be a spillover effect. It should be a direct effect. So that's one thing, right? We should aim to make it directly in the agreements. But also the very process of negotiating trade agreements, opaque, it's time consuming, and it's seen as indirect democracy. So that's not helpful to anyone. So what do we do? How do we build back better so that we build trust? So I have a couple of suggestions here. And the first thing I'd say is put trust at the heart of the agreements. So policymakers should be thinking about how do we do this so that we establish greater trust among the market actors online. Secondly, one of the things I really like about the trade agreement DIPA between Chile, New Zealand, and Singapore, and the digital economy agreement of Australia and Singapore, is they're trying to find ways to make the regulations interoperable. That is really important if you want the regulations to be effective. Then let's think long and hard about what we're talking about when we're talking about digital protectionism. These things are really important to building trust. So we need to see if DDoS attacks, internet shutdowns, and censorship are trade barriers. And if they are, let's create model laws through UNITRAL that help us address it, that we can give to developing countries and say, here's a model law that you can work with. Then let's look again at the trade policy making process and try to use data innovations to make it seen as more trusted and interactive. Because in the end, you want citizens, netizens, to feel consulted and then heard. And the Japanese government, I think, has done a lot to try to do this in its agile government proposals. Okay, finally, I suggest that governments provide data governance capacity building assistance, money, goodwill, so that these people are seen as important to development and economic growth, and capacity building training. So thank you so much.